Sorry for the inconveniences caused by my battery low problem. I promise to fix. Please subscribe so that when the channel gets turned into private you don't miss a video. Please hit the subscribe and like button already if you are enjoying this.
The secondary oocyte has been fertilized. What happens afterwards? Or what happens to the fertilized secondary oocyte, which we are now calling a zygote? Remember, the zygote divided into two, okay, to form an embryo, which consists of two cells known as blastomere. Okay. Please, are you following?
Yes, sir.
Hello. All right. So what happens to the fertilized oocyte, which is now an embryo? Because we are calling it an embryo because, okay, first of all, once it's fertilized, it becomes a zygote. The zygote then undergoes its first mitotic division. Okay, so once it undergoes its first mitotic division, to divide into two cells, it's no longer known as a zygote, but an embryo. Okay, so let's see what happens to the fertilized oocyte, which is now an embryo. Any questions? All right, so by the end of the lecture, we should be able to define and explain what cleavage is. And then we should also be able to explain the process of formation of a blood process. And then explain how twins are formed. And then explain the various types of Siamese twins. All right, let's move on. So what we are saying is that once the secondary oocyte has been fertilized, okay, to form a zygote, which is a single cell. Okay, now it's a single cell which is going to divide, okay, to form a multicellular organism. Of course, a multicellular organism, okay, contains about 30 trillion number of cells. Okay, so you being an organism, of course, you know that an organism consists of several organ systems, and then we know that organ systems, okay, or several organs come together to form an organ system, and then several tissue come together to form an organ, and then several cells come together to form a tissue. So basically, the human body is made up of cells. Now, these cells are specialized to form different parts of the human body. Okay. So the human body is made up of about 30 trillion cells. Okay. Now, these 30 trillion cells are derived from the fertilized oocyte, which is known as a zygote. So that one cell, or that fertilized oocyte, which is a zygote, which is made up of only one cell, is going to give rise to these 30 trillion cells in the body. So what happens is that the cell has to go, or has to undergo a process known as cleavage. Okay. So we are saying that the goal of development is to produce a multicellular organism from the one cell, or from the zygote, which is just a cell. Please, I hope you are following. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Are
sir.
you
We are
following?
here. Yes,
Yes,
please.
sir. We are following.
So we
Yes,
are
sir,
saying
Bishop.
that so the zygote, which is the fertilized oocyte, okay, has to undergo or has to divide into a number of cells, and these cells will eventually differentiate to form the various systems within the body, and then collectively they form an organism or a multicellular organism. Okay. So we are saying that cleavage is the first major phase of embryonic development. So for the embryo to develop, to form a fetus, and then finally a baby. Okay. Cleavage is the first phase, okay, or the first process which has to occur after fertilization. So we are saying that cleavage is the rapid cell division. Okay, it's the rapid succession. Okay, cell division. Okay, it creates a multicellular embryo from a single cell zygote. Now, during the process of cleavage, okay, the cells do not grow; they are just dividing. So they are not growing, but rather they are what? Dividing. Okay. Now there are about two stages in the process of what? Cleavage. Okay. So we have the molar stage and then the blastular stage. We have the molar stage and then the blastular stage. Right. So let's look at the process of cleavage. So you can see that there's single cell zygote here. Okay. It's divided. Okay, once it divides into two cells, it's no longer known as a zygote, but rather an embryo. So the cells of the embryo will then also begin to divide. Okay, they begin to divide to create more cells so that the cells can be specialized to form the different organ systems of the body. And then it will towards the oocyte. Then we are saying that 12 to 24 hours after ovulation, fertilization occurs. So you can actually see the fusion of the male pronucleus and then the female pronucleus. So once they fuse, okay, of course, once the sperm enters the oocyte, it becomes an ovum. And then once they fuse, they form a single cell known as what? A zygote. So usually, formation of the zygote, okay, occurs between 12 to 24 hours after ovulation. Okay. Then once the zygote is formed, the zygote has to undergo a series of mitotic division. Okay. That series of mitotic division is what is known as what? Cleavage. So cleavage is a series of mitotic division, dividing the single cell zygote formed from fusion of the male and female pronuclei, okay, into a multicellular organism. Okay, so the first cleavage division occurs, okay, 30 hours after ovulation. So the zygote divides into two. So that's the first mitotic division or the first cleavage division. Okay, where the zygote, which is a single cell, divides into two cells. Okay, And this division occurs 30 hours afterwards, ovulation. Okay, by then, fertilization would have taken place. Okay, so it occurs 30 hours after ovulation. And then the second stage, okay, the second cleavage division occurs 40 hours afterwards, ovulation. So what happens is that the two cells which are produced from the first cleavage division also divide. Okay, each of them divide. So this will give, or will divide to give two cells. This will also divide to give what? Two cells. So in essence, the second cleavage division gives rise to what? 4 cells. Now, what you need to know is that, okay, these cells, once the zygote divides, the cells are no longer known as a zygote, or the two cells form an embryo, or the developing embryo. But each individual cell is known as what? A blastomere. So this is a blastomere, that is a blastomere. So after the first cleavage division, the zygote gives rise to 2 blastomeres. Okay, collectively, they form the developing embryo. Then after the second cleavage division, the 2 blastomeres also divide to give rise to 4 blastomeres. And then after the third cleavage division, the 4 blastomeres, which were produced during the 40th hour of ovulation, also divide, giving rise to what? 8 cells. So it looks like after each division, the number of blastomeres doubles. So the first gave rise to 2, the second gave rise to 4, okay, the third gave rise to 8. Now, at the 8th cell stage, okay, the cells or the blastomeres kind of look at the second cleavage, okay, giving rise to the 4 blastomeres. You can see that the cells are loosely attached with each other. But after the third cleavage division, the cells kind of become compacted. Okay, they move closer to each other. So we call that process compaction. Okay. Now, by the third day of cleavage division, or by the third day after fertilization, okay, the 8th cell stage would have undergone the 4th cleavage division to give rise to 16 blastomeres, which are compacted together. Okay, so the 16th stage or the 16 blastomeres are given a name known as what? Morula. Okay, so by the 3rd day after ovulation, okay, the zygote would have divided, okay, giving rise to what? 16 blastomeres, which are compacted together. Please, are you following? Are you following?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
So far. All right, no question. Let's move on. So we are saying that once the zygote has reached the 2 cell stage, it undergoes a series of multicellular division. Okay, so that's what I've already said. Increasing the number of cells, right? Now, so cleavage is a series of mitotic division, whereby the zygote is divided into numerous cells. Okay, now these cells are equal in terms of the size. Now, each daughter cell, okay, after the cleavage division is known as what? A blastomere. So each of the cells, okay, are known as what? A blastomere. So we are saying that cleavage begins with a zygote. When a zygote divides, okay, and then once they divide, the cells become compacted together, and then there is the formation of what? Morula. So the morula is the cells or the embryo having 16 blastomeres, which are compacted, or series of cells are compacted together. Okay, and then it terminates at the start of the formation of a blastula or the blastocyst stage. All right, so here I left this one out. So when the cells form the morula, okay, fluid begins to accumulate. Okay, now what you need to know is that, remember, the fertilization occurred within the what? The ampulla of the fallopian tube. Okay, so once they are fertilized, or once the oocyte has been fertilized, it doesn't remain in the uterine tube. It's actually moving towards the uterus to implant. Hope you understand. So once it travels through the uterus, it travels through the fallopian tube. Okay, fluid from the fallopian tube begins to move towards the embryo. Okay, so in that case, the cells aggregate themselves. Okay, so once the fluid begins to move towards the center or towards the embryo, the cells are pushed.
Please hit the subscribe and like button already if you are enjoying this.